Hey guys, it's Lord of the Pogs. For the next 10 weeks, we're going to talk about the chalkboard in the 2003 film School of Rock. If you've never seen it, School of Rock stars Jack Black in the role of struggling guitarist Dewey Finn, who poses as a substitute teacher to pay his rent. After witnessing the musical abilities of the students, he forms a band of 4th graders to perform in Battle of the Bands. In one scene, he teaches his students about the history of rock and roll. I've always been interested in the contents of this blackboard, and this is the scene I want to talk about. I took a class in college called The History of Rock and Roll, which I did not find engaging. I was really disappointed. I actually found it quite boring. So hopefully you'll find this miniseries quite a bit more interesting. Country music originated with church and gospel music in the 1920s, and the term country music gained popularity in the 1940s. But we're not going to focus on that. We're going to assume that country is a genre of music entirely separate from rock, and that it broke off and merged into folk and rockabilly around the 1950s. Today we're going to talk about how folk and rockabilly entered the rock scene from country music. This split and merge into folk music is known as the American Folk Music Revival, and also contributed to the development of folk rock, which we'll talk about later. The bands listed as associated with folk music are the Kingston Trio, Joan Baez, and Peter, Paul, and Mary. The Kingston Trio and Joan Baez both started their music careers in 1958. The Kingston Trio in San Francisco is a nightclub act with members Dave Guard, Bob Shane, and Nick Reynolds that rose to fame rather quickly with their first album and released 19 albums between 1957 and 1967 that made the Billboard Top 100. Joan Baez began performing in Massachusetts and performed at Woodstock in 1969. Peter Yarrow, Paul Stuckey, and Mary Travers formed as Peter, Paul, and Mary in 1961. Their first album included the song Where Have All the Flowers Gone, and remained in the Billboard Top 10 for 10 months, including 7 weeks at number 1, and Puff the Magic Dragon in 1963. Despite rumors that Puff the Magic Dragon refers to drugs, Peter Yarrow maintains that the song is about the loss of childhood innocence. Rockabilly is a blend of bluegrass country music with rhythm and blues, and this is what's considered classic rock and roll. The term rockabilly is a portmanteau of rock and roll and hillbilly music, which is what country music was called before that term was popularized. The bands listed as associated with rockabilly are Elvis, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly, Roy Orbison, and Eddie Cochran. Eddie Cochran wrote songs that captured teenage frustration and desire in the mid-1950s and early 1960s, and his image as a sharply dressed and attractive young man with a rebellious attitude epitomized the stance of the 1950s rocker. Eddie Cochran died in a car accident when he was 21 years old. Roy Orbison was known for his impassioned singing style, complex song structures, and dark emotional ballads. Many of his songs conveyed vulnerability at a time when most male rock and roll performers chose to project masculinity, and he became known for performing while standing motionless and wearing black clothes to match his dyed black hair and dark sunglasses. In 1988, he co-founded the Traveling Wilburys, a rock supergroup, with George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne. The Everly Brothers were rock and roll duo Don and Phil Everly. They released their hits Bye Bye Love and Wake Up Little Susie in 1957, and in 2015, Rolling Stone ranked them number 1 on its list of the 20 greatest duos of all time. Buddy Holly opened for Elvis Presley and Bill Haley and the Comets in 1955, and released his hit songs That'll Be the Day and Peggy Sue in 1957. In 1959, his music career was cut short when a plane he was riding with Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper crashed in an event referred to as The Day the Music Died by Don McLean in his song American Pie, released in 1971. Elvis Presley is dubbed the King of Rock and Roll with his energized and sexually provocative performance style. His music career started in 1954, and his first hit single, Heartbreak Hotel, was released in 1956 and sold over 10 million copies within a year. In 1977, Elvis Presley died at the age of 42. He's recognized as the best-selling solo artist of all time by the Guinness Book of World Records, and he holds the record for the most gold and platinum albums and the most albums charted on the Billboard 200. Thanks for watching. Next week we're going to talk about blues and jazz and how they contributed to R&B and doo-wop. Rockabilly itself takes some elements of R&B, and R&B contributed to a rock genre further down the line that I'll discuss more in episode 9. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a tip. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that little bell in the corner to get notifications on more videos like this one.